Courage or crazy? Courage to get through life and a whole lot of crazy to survive life. Trapper, Teresa, and Cheryl, your ambassadors of Courage or Crazy. Sharing life with you, uncensored and unfiltered. Real life, real people, real courage, real crazy.
Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Courage or Crazy. Today is a day of honoring and remembrance for one of our co-founders. And when we take a moment and think about life, sometimes it's our faith, our profession, our educational paths, or who we are as parents. But there's always an origin story for how things in life begin or evolve or create. And today I'm really honored to introduce our co-founder, Cheryl Oliver, as we approach our February 9th podcast. February 9th is a day that is our birthday for Courage or Crazy. So Cheryl, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're honored to hear your story and the origin of Courage or Crazy here.
Thank you, Trapper. So, for the listeners out there who haven't heard our very first 3 podcasts where we talked about how Courage or Crazy came to be, a brief summary of that is my son RJ was murdered on February 9th, 2006. So, we are now in 2023, and so we're approaching the 17th year of me being without him. And for any of you listening who have lost a child, I know Teresa sitting here with me has lost a child. We have shared many stories of those days, the birthdays, the anniversary of their death. It hits us hard and heavy. But one of the things that took us 16 years to come to be was this little thing we call Courage or Crazy, and the podcast. And now we like to say we are big in our own minds, and we hope to be someday. But the whole point of Courage or Crazy is to share stories with the listeners out there. And so one of the main things that I want to do is not only honor my son RJ, but to remind people to honor the people that they have lost every single day. So RJ was 22 years old when he was murdered in a drive-by shooting, or what they called a drive-by shooting, sitting in my recliner in my living room. I won't go into the gory details of what my house became after that, but you can only imagine. That's not the story of RJ that we want to remember. The story of RJ is we want to remember this young man who was extremely handsome. He was a quarterback, and he played other sports as well. He played basketball and baseball. He was a pitcher in baseball, but he broke damn near every record in Michigan as a quarterback his senior year. So he was a very popular kid. He had a ton of friends. And one of the coolest things about RJ was he remembered names and he remembered people. And so if he would have met you, say, 5 years ago, and you walked into the room, he would have said, "Hello there, Teresa. Nice to see you again." And he would come over and give you a hug and give you that $1 million smile. And he just never forgot people, and people were very important to him. And, when he passed away, it was amazing to me the number of people that said, RJ was my best friend. RJ was my best friend. I mean, if we're lucky in life, a lot of us have 2, maybe 3 people in general that we know we can truly say have our backs all the way through life, defend us, defend our honor, take care of us, hold our secrets. And to hear that many people when he passed away say that RJ was their best friend speaks to the testament of who he was as a young man. Okay, I'm already starting to cry. So if you hear me sniffle, I'm just going to apologize up front. So it is what it is.
It's emotional.
I never apologize for emotions anymore.
There's no problem with sharing.
Yeah,
emotion.
Exactly.
Especially with our listeners.
That's what we do here at Courage or Crazy. We've cried a lot in Courage or Crazy. We've laughed a ton. And so as RJ came to be in his wisdom, and he was always a mama's boy. He didn't care. He would tell people, like most student athletes and good-looking men and stuff growing up, they're like, "Oh, mom, don't hug me, okay, like drop me off a block from the school." And, RJ was not that type of kid. He was like, he would hug mom and love on me in front of everybody, and he always brought everybody over to my house to introduce them to me. And my house was kind of like the hangout, like it is now for all teenagers in the world. So he was just that type of person, well loved, well liked. And so when he was murdered, of course, it just created this monster huge void in so many hearts and lives. And it was just something that, as grief happens, we can't deal with it very well. I mean, we're not taught how to deal with it. And I don't even know how you would teach somebody to deal with it, because you can't even imagine the pain that happens during grief. We've all experienced it. And, we've all, by the grace of God, managed to get through it. And you learn and you grow. And so throughout the years, I wanted to just honor him in everything I did. And I have failed probably a lot because I've made a lot of mistakes. But, first and foremost, I just always felt like he was my guiding light, like he was next to me and supporting me and loving me. And so that's what I feel every time I put I call them earmuffs, just so everybody, I know they're not earmuffs, they're my headset, but call them earmuffs. Because it's cold in this doggone studio too, so they do help warm my ears. But but so every time I put those on, every time I walk into studio, every time I start to post something on any of our social media platforms, it's like RJ guides me. And I know he is such a huge part of Courage or Crazy. And we know that Trapper and Teresa and I have built this friendship. And I don't know. I would like to think that I would have chosen Teresa and Trapper out of any crowd to be my friends because of the people they are. But I'm not so sure I would be the person I am to choose that type of person in Teresa or Trapper if it wasn't for RJ and losing him and what I've experienced. So he's just an integral part of everything I do, which means he's every bit a part of Courage or Crazy. So flash forward years and years later, I mean, we all deal with grief as we do. Grief happens. We honor him the best we can. We walk through that grief journey, and we open the doors and we close the doors and we slam the motherfucking doors when we're pissed. And, we do all of those things we do on a grief journey, and all of it's okay. So, and it's okay for me to use that cuss words talking about it too. So don't judge. Don't even judge.
Don't even go there.
The grief journey is yours and yours individually, and you can walk it however the hell you want to walk it. So, February 9th just became this day, and Teresa and I have talked about this as those days for her precious Alex come up. We've talked about them. It's like the days leading up to it are just so friggin' emotional. Like this week, for instance, I mean, I found myself like I was just kind of agitated, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm normally not an agitated person. I'm normally just like this, I mean, look, I'm easygoing and, and I laugh a lot throughout my day. And I just felt myself being agitated, like the world was bugging the shit out of me.
Well, just interrupt you real quick. I've been feeling that too. I think part of that, I almost said club.
I know. I hate
not
that.
a club.
It's not a damn club that we
It's
want
not a
anybody to
club.
live in. No.
Don't join it. But just knowing, I know that next week's coming. I know that
Yep.
the 9th, that it's about to be.
Yep.
So my agitation is growing because in yours that's coming, which means my April
Is coming.
which is her birthday, which then 7 weeks later is my June.
Yep.
And before that is your May.
Yep.
And knowing that, and it does irritate.
It does.
It throws you off.
It does. It throws you off. So, I mean, it's just, we talk about that, the leading up to stage, which is always awful. And then normally when the day comes, we wake up and we're going, oh, okay, it's just another day, although it's one of those days.
Unless you wake up and immediately you're crying.
Oh, of
and
course.
then you're like,
yeah,
oh, fuck, it's one of
those
days.
We never know what to expect. And so I think, I mean, I have been part of Compassionate Friends for a number of years, helped start a chapter in the Verde Valley. It's all the process of healing. But I think one of the greatest healing factors that has happened for me has been Courage or Crazy. It's just, it's like the conversation, Trapper, you remember it well, we had almost 16 years ago about Courage or Crazy and how it intertwines in our lives. And we came up with this crazy idea of sharing Courage or Crazy. And now, we launched in January of 2023, and we've made it through a month, and now we're into February of 2023. And I look at February 9th. I actually am planning to take the 9th through the 12th off and spend it with my family. And that's the first time we're going to be able to do that in many, many years. So,
but you have another reason.
I do.
For February 9th.
I do.
Something else before Courage or Crazy.
Yep, something else. And I swear to God, this was the hand of RJ all over it. So in 2020, actually, I guess it was in 2019, my son and his wife then announced that they were going to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, I mean, I'm a Grammy. I love being a Grammy. I had my older grandson, Ezra, which, is just the greatest. I mean, if you're not a grandparent yet, I mean, it is the greatest thing on the planet, And so I was so thoroughly enjoyed my little E, and the thought of having another one, for Grammy to spoil just was amazing. And so shortly after they found out they were pregnant, Tony said that they had decided they were going to name the baby after RJ. Probably not use his name, but his initials were going to be RJ. And, and we thought that was so cool. And lo and behold, RJ's birthday is May 28th. Their original due date was May 25th. So, of course, all of us were like, oh, we found out it was a he. So he's going to come here on the 28th. It's going to be 2 birthdays. He's going to share RJ's birthday. And we were all planning that. Well, life decided to change its path.
Massively.
Yeah. So on February 8th in 2020, I got a phone call early morning from my son that his wife, the mother of my new grandson, was being airlifted from the Verde Valley to Phoenix, to a hospital there, because her water had broke already. And so, of course, I get in my car and drive the 3 hours and meet them at the hospital in Phoenix. And so, well, as a matter of fact, I didn't. Did I go that? Yes, I went to the hospital, made sure she was okay, and then I stayed with a friend of mine in Phoenix. And I said, well, if anything happens overnight, I'll be here. I'll be close. So they told her, well, we're just going to put you on bed rest. You're going to be on bed rest the rest of your pregnancy. Settle in. You're here for the duration, right? So I thought, well, I'll just hang for a few days, give my son a break. I'll hang at the hospital and just keep her company and do all that stuff. Tony, as we're walking to, I think, have lunch at the hospital, my son Tony said to me, he goes, Mom, what if this little guy is born tomorrow?
I remember that conversation with you.
What if it was born? And of course, I immediately called Teresa because I'm about to burst out crying. I think I excused myself to the bathroom and was like, Teresa, this can't happen. And I was like,
those were your exact words. This can't happen. This can't happen.
No, I was terrified of it happening because he was only 20 weeks. It was only 20 weeks. And I'm like, he ain't old enough. He's not going to survive. And I cannot lose another member of this family on February 9th. I just can't. I can't. And then, of course, as a mom, you're worried about your child. I mean, it just was like, I cannot lose another RJ. They had decided on the name Race and Jacob. Jacob is also my youngest child's name. So the initials are RJ after Tony's older brother, and the Jacob comes from his younger brother. So what an amazing tribute to his brothers.
Yes.
So-
now you have this little guy looking at being born
Yeah,
on a day,
on one of those days.
which
And the possibility, very strong possibility that we would lose
would
him.
lose him too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, I was just, I emotionally, I just could not handle it. I could not handle it. I just was beside myself. So left the hospital, went and stayed with a friend overnight. And I thought, well, they'll call me if anything happens overnight. And sure enough, I don't know, it was pretty early morning. They called me. They were rushing her to take the baby, to do a C-section. Well, one of the most amazing things about that, before I get started about what looking at a 1 pound, 11 ounce baby is like, one of the most amazing things about that is RJ died on February 9th. I think the time of death on his death certificate was 12:01 because there was no exact time, obviously, of the actual death because he was in my living room when he got shot. And so they based it on the first 911 call.
Yeah.
So it was 12:01 is what they put down as time of death, because hoping beyond hope that he died instantaneously. When you get a gunshot to the head, that's your only hope as a parent. So my daughter-in-law at the time and my son, when I got to the hospital, before I went down to see the baby in NICU, she told me this story, which of course was emotional as hell. She said that she was in the room and she kept telling Tony, she said, Tony, something just doesn't feel right. I think something's going on. Well, the nurse came in about 11:30, I guess, at night and checked her and said, no, everything seems to be fine. Hold tight, just rest, do what you need to do. And she said at about 12:01, she got this really, really funny feeling. And she goes, I just know something is happening. This baby is coming. So she wouldn't shut up. She was incessant. Her and Tony were incessant about getting the doctor in the room, getting the nurse in the room. When the doctor came in to check on her, which of course this whole series of events of really feeling something happened started at 12:01. Now it's shortly after that because, they take time at the hospital to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
His little foot was sticking out. His little foot.
Yep.
So he made his presence known into the world at 12:01, which is the exact time we lost RJ. So I knew that God was not going to be that cruel and he was going to save this baby. I just didn't know the journey he was going to have. So as I'm walking down to the NICU to see our little RJ for the first time, I mean, I was friggin' terrified. I don't know any of you guys out there in our listening audience if you've ever seen a little preemie baby in the NICU. It's fucking scary.
It is. It's
Jesus
terrifying.
Christ. Jesus Christ. That is the most scariest place on the planet, is walking into a NICU.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it is. I was terrified. And I was walking next to Tony, and Tony's quite a bit taller than me. He's like 6'4", a little over 6'4". And I looked up at him right before we opened up the NICU room door. And I said, son, I'm friggin' terrified. And he goes, me too, Mom. Me too. I mean, what more is there to say? And I'm like, okay, well, let's just go meet this little conqueror of life. Let's just go meet him. And so they did all the things, put us in gowns and did all that stuff, cleaned us up. And of course he was in the little incubator and it was covered. And they lifted off his cover. And this little boy, our little RJ, was like kicking and moving his arms around, and he was just nonstop little movement. And I was like, I mean, honest to God, I know this may sound stupid. At 50-something years old, I should know better, or maybe I should have Googled something. But I mean, I was like, they can move at this?
Oh, did you not have children of your own?
Well, I don't know.
Were you never pregnant?
Yes, but I don't know. It was just like I stood there in complete awe. Now, mind you, I can't even think of a reference that only weighs 1 pound, 11 ounces. I mean, I don't know. What weighs 1 pound, 11 ounces? I mean, I don't know. I mean, seems like my pens I pick up way more than that sometimes. I don't know. So to see this little guy, and he was just so excited about life, it looked like. I mean, he's got all kinds of breathing apparatuses, and he's got cords, and he's got everything. Oh my God, he's just got this shit going everywhere. And he did not give a shit. He's just moving his little arms and his feet, and he's like, I'm here, world, I'm here. And I couldn't even, I couldn't fathom it. I mean, it just seemed like the craziest thing to me. And then I just, I didn't want to cry and break down in front of Tony, and because I know he was freaking out. And so I'm trying to be strong, but I don't know. I don't have a clue of what to say at this point. Right. So I was just in awe. I mean, just in awe. And the nurse, thank goodness, she went through like, okay, we're starting to do this for him, and we'll then do this, and yada, yada, yada. And at that time, we couldn't touch him yet because, again, if you've never seen a preemie, their skin is pretty translucent and pretty frail. So we couldn't touch him. I wanted to so bad. I asked if I could, and I couldn't at the time. And then, so I went home and, got the daily updates, the kids, my daughter-in-law at the time and Tony, they were calling me and giving me the daily updates. And then the next week I went back up there, and I was able to see him again. And they let me put my hand in there and touch him. And it was, yeah, I mean, I had seen pictures all week long because I'm like, send me more pictures. So, I was being the typical Grammy, I mean, I was getting pictures all week long. So I got I was getting the pictures, and I was still in such awe. But the first time, and I know you parents who have had preemies, this feeling. I mean, it's just simply amazing. Well, of course, holding our children who aren't preemies is amazing the first time. But when I stuck my hand in there, and I reached my hand out to his hand, and these little bitty fingers. I mean, they're so microscopic fingers almost. Like he squeezed Grammy's finger. And of course, I'm crying because I think that's the most amazing thing in the world. And I just had this feeling of RJ washing over me. It was like in that moment in time, I had our new little RJ holding my hand, and I could feel my angel RJ wrap his arms around me. And I knew then in my heart, even though my brain sometimes didn't convince me of that, I knew in my heart that this little boy was going to make it.
Yeah.
And then I didn't need to worry anymore, although I still did, because your brain sometimes doesn't counteract with your heart. And I knew that RJ had given us this gift to make sure that February 9th was not tragedy.
Yeah.
That it took him a long damn time. I mean,
this is not easy to pull off.
Took him a long
Oh my gosh, Trapper, can you believe that? What you just said?
She's not in her typical Cheryl mind at the moment.
Took him long enough. Well, geez, Mom.
I mean, so what
the
hell?
bitch can talk a whole holiday weekend and never take a breath.
All right, both of y'all can kiss my ass. This is emotional, and I'm paying tribute to my two RJs. Okay, stop it.
But you just called your angel RJ out.
I did. I called him out. Well, he would expect nothing less. He would expect nothing less. You know what? I mean, I have called him out more than once in his lifetime. He's called me out more than once too. Let's be fair, because he has had plenty of reasons. All of my kids have had plenty of reasons to call their mama out too. But I mean, the story of RJ And the story of how he has affected our life and continues to this day. And our little RJ, we mostly call him Rayson, but in Mama's heart, he's my Grammy's heart, he's my little RJ. And then there's one other story I want to share about the effect of RJ in our life. For those of you who don't know RJ, probably most of you listening, his full name is Richard Allen LaFour Jr. He was born on his father's birthday, Richard Allen LaFour Sr., or wasn't called Sr. until RJ was born, of course.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. I was hiking one day, and of course, I couldn't get back to see Rayson because COVID happened and they wouldn't let grandparents in the room. So I didn't get to see him until 100 and I think he was in NICU 110 days, I want to say 105 or 110. So I was there the day they brought him out into the real world. I drove to Phoenix and got to hold on him for the first time. But so I didn't get to go there, but I was getting my updates like all of us dealing with the COVID issues. You know, if you had somebody in the hospital, you just get the updates, you get pictures, you do what you can to see and feel and be part of what's going on. But I was hiking one day with my friend Keith, and we were way up in a mountain somewhere, and my phone rang, and it was Rayson's mom. And of course I answered it because I thought something was going on with Rayson, of course, you know. And she said she was about in tears, and she said, I have to tell you a story. And I said, what's that? So she had gotten home with the baby, and of course they set him up with NICU because there's so many rules and things you have to do. So you have like this advocate that calls and they check on the baby and make sure everything's okay and do all of that stuff. And so the advocate called, and she said, well, I'm just calling to check on baby Richard. And Ashley, of course, was taken aback for a moment too because of Richard. And she goes, well, his name is actually Rayson Jacob. And the lady said, that's really weird. All of our paperwork says Richard. She goes, everything that came from the hospital, every piece of paper I have from any agency says Richard.
Okay.
So once again, RJ was like, oh, y'all are just going to remember me, I guess. So, and now Rayson is turning 3 here in a few days, and he is, well, let's just say he's a rambunctious little sucker. He has a smile that can melt Grammy's heart and most people's hearts, just like his Uncle RJ could. And my son, God love him, and he is now a single parent with not only my older grandson Ezra, but he shares 50-50 custody of our little RJ. And my son, Tony, I can't even express to you how proud I am, not only for surviving, getting this child into the world and doing everything he did to bring a preemie to 3 years old, but the fact that, he honored both of his brothers in naming our little Rayson. And, I watch him, the way he handles being a parent. And, Teresa, this, you're the same way. Trapper, I know you're the same way. Our babies that's what we live and breathe for. And it doesn't matter how old they are. We are parents. We're just parents. And Tony is that way. Does he drive me crazy sometimes? Has he made some mistakes sometimes? Absolutely. But the love I see between him and his boys, and that just unconditional, I've got you forever attitude that he has, is just an amazing thing to see. And I know RJ would have been that same kind of father, and I fully believe that my youngest Jacob will be that kind of parent as well. And as I always say, love conquers all. And honoring RJ is my way of continuing to love on him and be a parent to him, and call him out when I need to. But for all of you listening, it was very important to me to share the story and honor RJ as we come up to this date, because as happy as I was, and Teresa knows that we had some episodes and some struggles along the way getting this Courage Crazy thing launched on January 1st as we had planned.
January 2nd.
Oh, January 2nd. I'm sorry. It was January 2nd because that's my birthday.
Yes.
But to me, it was January 1st, but it actually launched on January 2nd. But, you know, to our listening audience, you know, whoever your RJ is, whoever it is that you can look into your heart and you wake up in the morning, every morning to honor them, continue with that. Continue honoring those that have gone on before us. Continue to honor those angels. Continue to walk the path and put them in everything you do, because they are part of everything we do. And we have, you know, I'm sure you all have stories about how those angels have visited you and how they're part of everything you do. And I hope you have another little RJ too that you honor your big RJ with, you know, in your life. And I hope that's the case. And I'm going to shut up now, Teresa and Trapper, so y'all can say a couple of things and maybe honor RJ in the way you would honor him. And I know I honor Alex every year on those days and in everything we do here too, which is Teresa's little one. Her little angel is part of this as well. And it's one of the many ties that Teresa and I have together as friends. So I'll let y'all guys talk now.
Okay. Go ahead, Trapper.
Cheryl, I just want to thank you for sharing that with us and our viewers and listeners. You know, sometimes we all deal with grief in many different forms. Sometimes we grieve the loss of a job or a friendship or a relationship, or, you know, in many cases, the loss of life. And, you know, grieving and mourning something is a very hard thing to survive. And so thank you for sharing. And, you know, I met you after the passing of RJ, and I've always admired your courage to go on into the world. You're an exceptional mother. Your boys are a testament of that. You're a kick-ass businesswoman. I mean, I've heard like you're a really great, like semi-amateur cornhole professional as well. I mean,
yeah, sure.
I always admire your courage, and I know our craziness has connected us, you know, over the years. So there's a hell of a lot of crazy. And today, with you sharing your journey and story of RJ and baby Rayson, you know, your miracle baby, I think would make RJ very proud. And really building that legacy. And to watch you over the years from that moment of time in your life to where you are today, I know he's with you every day. And the woman you've become is someone we all admire in our communities. I mean, you're adored and beloved by so many people. So it's really exciting for me and Teresa to be on this journey with you of Courage and Crazy.
Oh, I wouldn't have it any other way. I picked the two perfect ones to share this crazy journey with me.
And you know, to have friends that you can laugh and cry with, cuss with, talk shit with is an amazing bond. And
it is.
When we started the discussion a decade or so ago, it never entered my mind at that moment that what would be today was in remembrance and legacy of RJ, and we would all be connected, you know, with Teresa can relate with the loss of life of a child. And so Courage and Crazy is a beautiful thing. Who knew it would be what it is today?
It is.
All right, my turn to pay respects to RJ. RJ, don't listen to your mom talking about how long it took you to do anything, okay? Seriously.
Oh, Lord.
Wow. Have you met you?
All right, whatever.
It took him a while. On the more serious, I guess, I suppose I can be serious, although it'll probably make me cry.
Right?
Because
Well,
it
we've shared
usually
a few of
does.
those in our day.
It usually does when we, I
Talk
mean,
about our kids.
we're fine when we're being back and forth funny.
Yeah.
You know, like RJ, it took you long enough.
Right.
You know, Alex, it took you long enough.
Right.
Jeez, could you listen to me just one time?
Mm-hmm.
When we get serious, that's when the tears flow.
Yep.
But I have appreciated from the moment that I met you the courage that you showed, and we talked about that. That's what led us to this studio.
Yep.
Doing what we're doing right now. You know, you grabbing your phone as we talked about in the narrative. Trapper, I found it!
Right.
The missing link!
Yep, exactly.
You know, but I know that you truly do feel that he's there with you.
I do.
Every step. I know that I remember the day that you remember that infamous day. We were supposed to be recording. We're driving around like bats out of hell.
Yes.
Around Sedona.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that day. What fun, though.
I know. But you talked about him that day.
Yep.
You know? And it was that urgency. I need to do this. And you said it, and it really caught my attention. I want him to be proud of me.
Yep.
You know, I don't want to miss this deadline that we set.
Yep.
I want RJ to be proud of me. So, I mean, congratulations on that. And now you're, you know, doing this podcast today. And if this is a goal for me to do too.
Yep. We're going to honor Alex too.
But RJ, I know you've been around. RJ, I know that you were with me over this weekend when I had an idea that I'm going to be discussing with your mom. As soon as this
Famous
podcast
last
is
words
recorded.
amongst friends. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to segue just a little bit onto the words that Teresa asked me more than once in our friendship journey. And those words are,
How brave are you?
there we go.
I've started asking Trapper too.
How brave are you?
It is a requirement if you are going to be my friend. Because
there's going to be a podcast about the things Teresa has asked
brave-
me. How brave are you? And the
How
things
brave
she's
are you?
asked me to do. But
Yeah.
I will tell you that you are, both of you, are such good friends of mine. You could ask me to do damn near anything. And I'm just going to say, okay, let's go do it. Let's go do it. Because I know we'd have each other's back through it all. No matter what
Yeah.
it was. If I was crying, y'all would wipe my tears or tell me to shut the fuck up and put on my big girl panties. If I was not being courageous enough, if I was having a friggin' meltdown, you know, I mean, I just know.
It's funny because and I'll go ahead and say it because hopefully by the time people are listening to this, there will be something else accompanying this. And RJ I know how big RJ is for you and your family and how he's talked about and memories shared and the inspiration that I think RJ wants you to capture.
Yes.
Is next week when you are up there.
Absolutely.
And video footage. And maybe talk about the football field in the middle of the road.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that one.
You know, it's a whole thing.
He had his hand in that one, too.
There's a lot, though.
There is.
And I think every time you step in here, I think that's what's really great about it is, yeah, RJ's here.
RJ's here. He's a huge, he was a huge personality. And still continues to be a huge personality to this day.
I wonder where he got that from. Trapper, do you have any idea where he might have got that from?
Well, I kind of have like this idea that it might be our semi-amateur.
It could be wrong. I mean,
player,
Cheryl, she's so quiet.
I know.
Demure.
I know. I'm quiet. You know, never say what's on my mind.
No. Big personality. No. But anyway. All right. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you for crying tears.
Oh, thank you, everyone listening, and especially to the two sitting here with me today. Thank you for honoring RJ alongside with me. And to RJ, Mama loves you completely. and it's unconditional. And as I told you, as you hit the field every single time, I am your biggest fan and always will be.
Trapper,
And
would
with
you like to
that,
take us out?
to our loyal listeners and audience, we thank you for joining us for another episode of Courage or Crazy. We know that grief, mourning, depression, anxiety, courage, and craziness exists in everyone's life. Please always feel free to reach out to us. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. And you can always email us at crazy@courageorcrazy.com. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a day full of courage and crazy.
Bye, everyone.